Welcome to Ken Journal. In the previous section, we looked into how to use the use state hook in your React app to kind of like manage our state. In this section, we're going to be talking about how to integrate API into your React application. Um, Now, for this project, Udacity actually gave us a list of API endpoints that we can use or utilize in our code. So we're not going to be writing any API. We're just going to utilize what we already have. So remember that previously, when we refactored our project, we actually used static content. We created this mock in our application, and then that is used to render what you see here. Now we want to get rid of all of this and then just get this initial set of data from an API. Um, let's go ahead and look into the APIs, Books API module once again. So here we have the host, which is, you can see it's from Udacity, and then we have a list of APIs. Um, Fetch is being used here, and pretty much it returns a promise, and then you can use a then and then on that. So usually when you use fetch to make your API call, passing in the host with the path, and then the headers, then you get a response, and then on that response you map to the response.json, and then you get the data and then data book. But I'm not going to talk into that. It's pretty straightforward. If you want to learn a little bit about Fetch, you can pretty much look at the documentation. So Fetch API, and yeah, you can look into this. Now we do have some endpoints here. We have the get all books, and then we have the get, which means you supply a particular book ID, and then you get the data for that. You have an update book, you have a search. We're going to be utilizing this later when we talk about search. But we're going to be focusing right now on the get all API. And when it comes to React, in the class-based components, we usually integrate an API using the lifecycle events. Component did mount, component will mount, and all those lifecycle events. With functional components, there's what we call the use effect hook. And pretty much it's a function where you can pretty much implement whatever external calls you want to make. And you can, there are three different lifecycle events that it handles for you. Pretty much in simple terms, if I put in here an empty array, all I'm saying is that when the component did mount, call this function, right? It's going to only run once. If I remove the empty array here, this is going to run every time your component loads. So you refresh, you're going to run, make a change to your state is going to run. Now, if I then put in here some state, let's say I have a state, for example, I have a state here called show search page, and if I want to track that, for example, I'm going to just put show search page here. What that means is anytime the state changes, this function is going to run. Okay. Now, for our use case, what we want to do is we want to run this function when our component loads, only once. So I'm going to remove this, make it an empty array. And then here, I'm going to go ahead and utilize the API that we have here. It's been imported here, so Books API. All I need to do is to say Books API, dot. Now I have a get all, right? And I have a get all um, function here. And I'm going to call the then on this because it returns a promise. The then, first I'm just going to go ahead and console.log that. So we just see what that looks like. Okay. All right, let's go to the console here and see. Um, so right now we are consoling.log this and we get 7 objects. Let's, just to be sure, we consoling.log that. I'm going to say data here. Okay. Right, so you see data. Okay, I think, okay, let's see, console.log, books. Okay, all right. So we went ahead and just console.log what we're getting back. But in reality, what do we really want to do? When we get this data back, what we want is for the data, for we to update the state once we get the data back. Now, we see we have initial books here, which is currently predefined for us. Ideally, this shouldn't be, so I'm going to comment this out and let me comment this out here. And I'm going to, I do have the initial books here. Okay. Now, instead of having the initial books here, which I now commented out, I'm going to make this an empty array. And then I'm going to set the books, right? So what I want to do is this set books. Okay. So right here, once I get the data back, all I want to go ahead and do is call set books and then pass in that data. Okay. And yeah, and you see that we are getting data back. We get something back. But I think that I suspect what is happening here, why we don't have these the pictures here, is that for the objects with the property where for the pictures is not properly set. So I'm curious what that is. I'm going to go ahead and just console.log again. Okay. And then so here I'm going to return, I don't need to return that. Then I'm going to go ahead and do console.log data. So let's evaluate that data once again. So right here, for each object, we do have the, what do we have? Okay, let's go back to our books. Our book here. Yes, so on our book, we have book.shelf, we have book.title. So is it title? I think it's title. We have title here. And then the author is actually publisher, I think. So I'm going to change this to book.publisher, I think. Okay, and then I'm going to look into the picture. So we have book.url, but here we don't have URL. We have image links and we have thumbnail. So I'm just going to change this to book.image links, image links dot thumbnail. Okay, great. So these are the books we got back. Okay, now how do we move book from one shelf to the other? I think let's see if that works since we did it the other time. If we do this, right, it does move. But one thing is, when we refresh, we want the state to remain. When we refresh, you see, we go ahead and load the books again. Um, and that's not what we want. We actually want this to be persisted. So let's go back to our API again. I think that we do have an API that we can use to update a book. So books API, okay, yeah. So you see, we do have an API to update a book. So what we want to do is when we change the state, when we change the shelf, we change it locally, but we also want to call the API to change it on the back end. So we're going to do that here. So from here, and I can go ahead and remove all of this right now. We don't need it anymore. Okay. Now, so change bookshelf is defined. Update bookshelf. This is where we have update bookshelf. So right here, you see we pretty much change the state of the book locally. But we also want to change the state of the book via an API call. So I'm going to go ahead and call the API somewhere. Let's see. Update books, maps each of the book. We know what the ID is. We set books. But also we want to do is update. We want to go ahead and call books API dot update book, and that actually takes a book and the shelf, which is good. We already have that information. Takes a book, takes the book, it takes the where to, which is the shelf, and then returns the object. So let's just go ahead and see what that returns. Go back here. Says we can actually do the then the response object. Let's call it data, and let's just console.log that. Okay. Now let's try that again. Let's move this book to a different shelf called Want to Read. Right. So the book moved to the shelf, and this is actually the object that Udacity returned, the API returned. Now I'm going to try and refresh. Let's see. All right. The state should persist. Yes, the state persisted. So yeah, that is with respect to API integration. We now have some of the features that Udacity wants us to achieve, which means that information should persist between page refreshes is done. Then we also have integrated an API. I think that is it. Does the main page allow users to move books between shelves? Yes, we did that. Does the main page show three categories? Yes. Does information passes between refresh? Yes. So the functionality for the main page is done. In the next video, we're going to look at a search page.